Hello, everyone. My name is Gil Panarosa, and this is Cities for Everyone, the webinar, where every other week I invite fascinating guests to share their stories about their experience, their knowledge, so that all of us can have better tools to be passionate advocates on creating cities that are more equitable, sustainable, fun, where everyone can live healthier and happier. Originally, I'm from Bogota, Colombia, where I led the construction of hundreds of parks and came to Canada, to Toronto, 26 years ago. And 20 years ago, I created 880 Cities, a successful nonprofit Canadian organization. I've been very fortunate to have worked in over 350 cities around the world, and this webinar is a way of giving back, inviting mostly people that I've known around the world and helping us understand better the issues and help us act, because this is not a time for anyone to be spectator. And today's fascinating topic. Today, the topic is talking with children about cities. And my guest is Lior Steinberg, who is going to be speaking from Rotterdam, Amsterdam, rather than the Netherlands, where he co-founded Humankind. Lior, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and how to talk with children about cities.
Again, thanks a lot for having me here, Gil. I had to look a little bit back in my calendar and photos to find out when was the first time we met, and it was actually in Groningen, the city that you see in the image. I saw that we have some participants from Groningen, and actually, somehow I feel that it was like 5 years ago, but it was actually in 2015. So we were all younger and more beautiful. And yeah, I found yesterday this image. One thing I realized is, yeah, that the images that you could do with your phone in 2015 were pretty low quality. I'm quite surprised how well they became now. But yeah, this was us, and I was still an intern, I think, at the municipality of Groningen back then, and they invited me to participate in the workshop you gave after the public event. And yeah, I have to admit that it was I would say an important point in my career. I got really inspired. Brent O'Darian was there as well. It was really nice. And now, 10 years later, you invited me here to join this webinar, so I'm really happy about it. A little bit about myself and the company that I co-founded, Humankind. We are based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and we love to connect people in space and connect people, understand better the space that people are in, and understand better people and how they work together. And we work on mostly on public space and creating better public space. We're doing citizen participation, placemaking, design, tactical urbanism, and working with people from different ages from about cities. And the topic of the presentation today is talking with children about cities. So when you asked me what I would like to share, I directly thought about this because it's something that I'm busy with in the last years. I'm working on projects that are connected to children, and I also just got my first child, Nuri, almost a year ago. He's actually on the other side of this door, and I'm hearing him. Oh, I see a lot of love. Thank you. I hope that you are not going to hear him, but thanks for his grandma. I'm allowed to do this webinar today. So Nuri really changed my life, of course. I'm much more tired, as you can see in this image, but I'm also an urban planner, and I'm lucky enough to be able to influence not only his home environment, but also the city environment, and hopefully make his city better for him and his friends and everybody around. And it's not that only since Nuri came, I am thinking about cities for children. I worked on public spaces for children for the last years, and I wrote a children book. And today I would like to tell you how I got to write the book and other projects that are related to that. And I decided to write another little story to make this presentation not so boring. So when I share the screen, I should have also, yeah, share sound. Yeah, I did it. I hope you will hear the sound now. And if not, please, Gil, let me know.
Meet Jane and Will. They live in a busy city and they love to play. One sunny day, their grandpa came to visit. "Let's go for a walk," he said. But as they walked, the street was filled with cars. "Where do people play?" Will asked. Meet Jane and Grandpa smiled. "When I was your age," he said, "we didn't have special playgrounds. We played right here in the street. It was our playground." Grandpa
So I guess most of you know it, and it was also mentioned in previous webinars. In the past, the streets were much more welcoming to children. And I don't want to romanticize life of children in the 1950s or 100 years ago, because there were also a lot of things that indeed improved over the years. But one thing that became worse is that back then children truly were able to go all around the street, and it was theirs just like it was everyone else. And there were no cars that could come and kill them, basically. And if a horse in a carriage or some adults would pass, they would just move and come back to play. And if you go to cities that were built back then, you can still see it sometimes. This is a picture I took in Groningen where we met Gil, and I just love this image because it just shows how amazing that city is. Children can still in the city center go down and literally play their ball while traffic, which is mostly bicycle, is passing by. And this image is something that can hardly be seen in most cities around the world, especially not in city centers. Um, Now, seeing children playing on the street is something we, over the years, saw less and less, and we all know the reason, right? I mean, the cars arrived, and children needed to find a we needed to find a maybe better place for children to go and play. And in Amsterdam, after the Second World War, they started building playgrounds in leftover spaces. But what was quite interesting about those playgrounds, by the way, most of them were built by architect Aldo van Dijk, is that they were built inside the urban fabric, and they were not separated from the city. You don't see fences. You see that they are part of the street city life. And I think that the way it was done back then was quite interesting because we didn't push the children out of the street. In a project, for instance, I worked on in Groningen back then, we tried to achieve the same place, to create this kind of like this playground gym space that is part of the street. It's not fenced. There is a little bit of green around, but you can even play there basketball, and the ball can actually get to the water, which is behind the photographer, or to the street itself. So you're not fenced outside. By the way, if you're interested in those playgrounds of Aldo von Eyck, there is a really good book about it called 17 Playgrounds. And if you're working on playgrounds, it's truly a must. It's a really inspiring book about the history of Amsterdam playgrounds. But that was before the cars arrived and before they took over our city. So I want to continue with our story.
But then something changed. The metal dragons arrived. At first, everyone was excited, but slowly more and more of them came, until the streets were completely filled, and there was hardly any room left for anything else. But then, in the playground, Will and Jane weren't happy. It was small and fenced. "It's boring," they told Grandpa. So Grandpa suggested, "Let's go home and play with your toys." In the playground,
So as we now know, playgrounds don't look like the images I showed before. They are mostly standardized, And even worse, they are fenced. Children have their own space in the city, supposedly safe space, where they are allowed to play and run and get their energy out. And anything outside this fence is unsafe for them. And if you would ask a lot of parents, they will tell you that they want this fence because the fence is defending the children from traffic. So no, I don't think anybody is doing it for a bad reason, building fences around playgrounds, but the result is quite sad. We are building quite boring places that are separated from public life, and this is where children are allowed to play in.
Back home, it was even worse. All their toys were cars, cars, cars. Even their books were about cars. Jane and Will didn't want to play with cars anymore. They wanted to play like Grandpa did.
So this is another thing that happened. So our streets became
Back home, it was even...
sorry. Our streets became completely filled with cars, but also if you look at our toys, there are many of them became car-centered. So it became really part of our culture. And if I think about this phenomena, how our streets change and our toys change, it reminds me the beautiful quote by Churchill. We shape our buildings, and thereafter they shape us. I love this quote. We shape our buildings, and then they shape us. We design the buildings, and the buildings shape the way people act, and this in return shapes the buildings again. It's really interesting. And if you think about it as an urban planner, we shape the environment, and the environment shapes people, and people shape the environment, and it goes on and on. And not only it doesn't only change people, it also changes our culture and our dreams, stories, and toys. So therefore, it's not a surprise that if our public space and cities look like this, then if you enter a toy shop, you see this. It's very difficult to find a toy bicycle in a toy shop. It's very, very easy to find a car in the toy shop. And nobody can tell me that this is somehow ingrained in our blood or our DNA because those cars didn't even exist 100 years ago. But if you enter a shop, you hardly you can't unsee it. It's all around there. And if you look for a children book, yeah, again, car, car, car. It's epic car and sad cars and fast cars. It's just all around. So there is hardly any option for parents not to buy car toys and car books to their children. They need to be really, really try to really try to avoid it, and it's difficult because it's all around, and children are just getting this car education from young age. So if we look at our environment, what we talked before, the quote by Churchill, the environment shapes our dreams and stories and even toys. And then in return, those children are growing up and will shape again the environment to create more space for cars because that's what they're growing up with. We need to break this cycle. And in order to break this cycle, we need to attack it from the two sides. And of course, improving the environment is something that is being done by many people and many great people that Gil already hosted here. Even last week, 2 weeks ago, we heard about the school streets, and we have world diets and pocket parks and better schoolyards, and we really can create better environment for children. It's difficult, it's only a drop in the ocean, but a lot of people are busy with it, and we just need to continue with it. And hopefully, if more people will do it and we will create better environments, children and their caregivers and their families, and actually everybody will have better experience on the street. And it might change also the mindset of people and how people what people dream about and the stories we tell about our cities. But I don't want to wait. I think that we can already change it. And therefore, we need to people that work in cities, urbanists, creative people, we can use our creative and imagination to actually provide those elements. Use rewrite books, create films, theater, education, art, TV, everything that shows the alternative for better cities, and show that not only having a car is a dream and a cool thing to have, but also cycling in a safe city is a great thing to have. So we need to just do it. And I think it's possible. We have a lot of creativity here. I see 300 people that participate, and we can just do it if we just start. And I want to share some of those that I did. So I guess many of you have grown up with this carpet. Do you know this carpet? Have you played with it? Can you mark with yeah, I see a lot of people that know it. I also grew up with this carpet. I loved it. I mean, you could take all your car stories, car toys, and you could just like ride with them, and it's a lovely carpet to play at. But actually, if you look at it, it is a terrible city because all the streets are just roads. There are hardly sidewalks. And if you want to go from one place to another, you need to go with a car. So this is not a really great inspiration. Unfortunately, there are too many cities that look like this. So I wouldn't say this is a very imaginary carpet, but it's definitely not something that we should aspire for. So in collaboration with Bolt, we decided to create this more human carpet. And the idea is that children can still play on it, but they will be inspired by a better city. We created this carpet, we printed it. I will show you it to you soon, but everybody can actually download it. You just search for Playmat or Human Playmate, and you can just download it, reprint it yourself. It's completely open source. And the way I try to design this playmat is to put in it examples of great urban design, and not that all streets look the same. As you can see in this playmat, it's very diverse, and every neighborhood is a bit different. And I think that this is much better inspiration of how a great city could look like. So just few elements in this playmat that I hope to inspire adults, the parents of the children, and the children who play with it. If you look at the left side, you see this neighborhood with a lot of what is called in Dutch woonerf, living street. And the living street, I think, is a great example of designing cities for people of all ages, and people being able to move in different speeds in the built environment. The woonerf is a place where all the street is being in one level. Everybody is allowed to use it, to walk there. And I really love the sign. If you look at the right side, the sign at the entrance to a living street, you see how the car is very, very small in the background, and the parent and the child are playing football, and they are big because the cars need to follow the speed of the children. Another element I added is the bicycle street, the Fietsstraat. That's another great example from the Netherlands. What it says here in Dutch on the right side is a bicycle street. The car is a guest. The cars are allowed to use this space. It's not a car-free space, but the children are the king of the street, or the cyclists are the king of the street. And you can see the children can really be in the middle of the street, just like this picture that I showed in the beginning of the presentation, where children were playing in London football. Children can be in the middle of the street, which is something that, if you think about, can hardly be done anywhere. And I also incorporated those car-free neighborhoods where you have a complete full car, that cars are allowed to park at the edge, but then you can live your life without a car in the neighborhood. In the Netherlands, the Merwede in Utrecht is an example for such a neighborhood that is being built. 12,000 residents with no private car parking. So that was one example, and we even, together with Bolt, we did a little bit of stunt to IKEA, telling them that they need to change this carpet that they keep selling, this car-oriented playmat, and change it to a more human-friendly. So if you go to IKEA, please ask them to change their playmat. It's ridiculous that we keep creating car-oriented playmat. Now let's go for books. We saw that there are so many books about cars. Why wouldn't we create a book about better cities that don't need car? So I decided to write the car that wanted to be a bike. And it's not a story that makes cars the enemy, because they aren't. They are not all of them are metal dragons. They are also nice, and they helped us, and they help us move around. And this is exactly the story about a little car that really loves its family and loves to move the family around. But the family discovers at one point that moving around a bicycle, it's much nicer. I don't want to spoil you the end of the book, but it's a nice one. And what I really love is getting those pictures from all around the world of children holding this book. This one was sent by Bruno Oliveira. I asked him for permission to use this image, and I love the smile on the on the face of his son holding this book, which really makes me happy. I mean, I wrote the book just as a fun project, but seeing it arriving to so many corners around the world, in this case Portugal, truly makes me happy. By the way, look at this huge car there in the background, and this child in this small bicycle. I mean, it just ridiculous to think that they need to share the same space. All right, so these are two examples of how we can maybe change the way we speak about our stories, the dreams, the toys we create, and the stories we tell about cities, and we almost complete the full circle. I want to speak about the last part, and this is if we can change the way and the things we believe and the stories we tell about cities, how can we now plan the better environment? And then Churchill, I think, will be happy. So I want to focus on participation. I mean, planning and policy making is a long process, and participation is just one part of it. But I think that in participation, we need to focus on getting out there and do it with much more people than the people we now get in participation meetings. And you know what I'm talking about. I mean, in the process of making our streets completely car oriented, we pushed so many people outside that I think that we almost forgot that we can speak about streets and cities with children, with elderly, with people who don't own a car. It's almost like that most participation meetings are just like car owners meetings. People, half of the people there are just angry that parking space are being not enough, etc. And I think that we need to become much more creative when we are participating with those people who are not the usual suspects. And children are this a group that we need to just get much better in participating with. And I'm not a child development specialist. I'm not a psychologist or social worker or a teacher, but we've been trying in our projects to do it together with the children, because I think that many times, as Gil mentioned before, when you are designing a public space, it will be used by children and their caregiver, and it's important to also hear and learn from children what they want. So in the same project I showed you before, the playmat, we also created a little book that asked a lot of children to draw their dream city or their dream street. And I think that using drawing is a really nice tool um, to allow children to share their wishes and dreams, because they are much better in drawing than maybe writing, especially if they are 5 or 4 years old. But they also, unlike us, they still have the imagination, and they're not afraid to draw. You know, when we are getting older, we really need to be forced to draw. So when I'm asking people our age to draw in participation meetings, they're all afraid, but children just go for it, their natural talent. And in this book that we created, on the right side of the book, um, it's called The Little Big Think Tank. I commented on each one of those or those images and little quotes of children. And I love it because you can take the concept, the quite vague or let's say more imaginative ideas of children, and you can really see where they came from or what we can learn about it, about cities. I just want to give you two examples. So this is Emilia from France, beautiful image. And she says that her dream street is that a lot of kids are running around and playing, and they don't have to be scared to do it. And mommy and daddy go to work on unicorns, and I bike to the kindergarten. So I love how she she sent the cars to the air somehow as a unicorn, and she's willing to cycle to school. It's funny that she doesn't offer also that her parents maybe might cycle to work. And I love to see that she wants to keep the street to the children. Or another example, Bastiaan from the Netherlands, 9 years old. He wants a street that has just enough room for parking my bike and also my mom's and my best friend's bike. And maybe some extra for new friends that I'm making in the judo class. And each street has also 2 or 3 bikes to borrow. So I mean, look at this, amazing. He's completely thinking about the sharing economy, sharing bike system. Also, you see how he really writes about issues that a lot of Dutch people and Dutch children have. They just cannot find bicycle parking. And this is his dream. So I just like to see how also the images are connected to the life of the children. And you can take it a step further. This is a project we did here in Rotterdam, where we participated with children to design their dream streets, and we used AI. So they basically could take a picture of the street and using AI add some elements with generative AI, add some elements to the public space, and then we just place it, and we created a sort of a dream map of streets of Rotterdam. And this is a tool that you can use with adults, but also with children, because it's so easy and intuitive to redesign the space with AI tools. And you can also go older and create more serious programs to talk about cities. Our Young City Makers program is a program where we work with youngsters um, for several weeks and really thinking about the city from different angles. So I think you can take it even beyond participation and really make it into programs where you really collaborate and think about the future of cities. And the teenagers that join those programs are not architects or urban planners. They are just teenagers who are interested in their city. And I think that we need to make more city makers and city creators. And lastly, to finish the cycle of Churchill, the best way is to also experience it on the street. And this is the last example of a project I want to show is again back to placemaking and tactical urbanism and changing the street for a short time. This is a project we did in Rotterdam called Vacation Street. And the idea was just to close off the street for the summer and just have a nice vacation sort of a play street or like school street where children and their parents and all the neighbors can enjoy a quiet place. And what I really like about this neighborhood is about this project is that those streets start to really look like the images that the children draw, right? They're very colorful and it just become a huge playground. And what I was amazed in that specific project is that I spoke with some of the children, and the project is called Vacation Street. And one of the children told me that this is the first vacation he's been to. So we also need to remember that not everybody has an option and possibility to go for vacation, even if we live in one of the richest countries in the world. And we can provide this opportunity in their own street, in their own city. And as you can see in the images, it shouldn't be expensive or too luxurious. It can be fun. So we finish the circle and we need to go on because it's not enough. Just few road diets or a few books is not going to beat all the bad streets and all the bad books that we created. We need to continue. We need everybody to work on it, not only urban planners, not only architects, everybody in the business and outside the business. And you probably wonder what happened with Will and Jane in the book. So the last slide is the last page of the book.
After many participation meetings and a little bit of magic from Jane and Will's ideas, the street was transformed. No more metal dragons. Jane and Will raced and played, and Grandpa smiled from his sunny spot at the cafe. The city felt alive again.
That's it for me, Gil.
What is your call to action on cities and children and how to engage children?
So thinking, I mean, what's happening in the world politics, it might be discouraging, because you think, I mean, those people are spending trillions on arms and another war. That's the last thing we need right now. The good part is we can change small things around us, and especially when it comes to things for children. It's really easy to and you don't need to be an urban planner or architect or even a painter or an artist. There are so many things that you can do with children. They are very non-judgmental children, and they would love it. So if you are good in building things, you can build something cool for children in the neighborhood. If you're really good in gardening, you can do it together with them in a small garden town. And if you like to write or draw, you can write another children book about better cities that are not about cars, but about people. We have so many skills that are needed, and luckily we are very diverse in our skills. People that are involved and interested in better cities that participated in your webinar. So I'm not worried about the skills. This we have. It's about doing the extra mile.
Lior and everyone who participated, I thank you. This is exciting. I hope that everybody lives energized to create cities that are more equitable, more sustainable, more fun, where everyone can actually live healthier and happier. Lior, thank you very, very much. Fascinating session on something that we need to learn, because everybody knows that if we create cities that are good for children, they're going to be good for everybody else. But it's not about creating cities for children, but it's also for and with children. And you provided so many ideas and so many ways on how to do it right and why this is important, and showing examples of before and afters. Thank you very much. I hope that everybody who watches this video will share it with decision makers, elected officials, city staff, with advocates, with media, so that around the world, we have better tools on how to talk with children about cities. And the end result is going to be better cities for everyone. Thank you very much.